Do you suffer from paraskevidecatriophobia? That would be the irrational fear of Friday the 13th, a term coined by clinical psychologist Dr. Donald Dawsey, who told his patients that when you learn to pronounce it, you're cured. So what's so scary about this ominous date? Well, in general, Fridays have been considered unlucky since at least the mid-17th century, though even 3 centuries earlier, Geoffrey Chaucer deemed Friday as a day of mischance in his Canterbury Tales. But the stigma was already present in early Christian legend, as Fridays were associated not only with the crucifixion, as in Good Friday, but also with other major biblical disasters, such as the picking of the apple, the killing of Abel, and the start of Noah's flood, which all supposedly took place on Fridays. As for the number 13, well, you could cite such fears dating as far back as ancient Babylonia. The Code of Hammurabi, for some reason, omits a 13th law in its clearly numbered statutes, though scholars now think that could have been a simple clerical error. The most weighted superstition around the number 13 ties to the Last Supper, at which 13 gathered at the table and one rather famously proved to be a traitor. This led to the belief that 13 guests at any table could court death, that one of the guests present would die before dawn, or within the year, possibly the last one seated, or the first one to rise, or the youngest, or the oldest, or... you get the idea. Even the infamous death card of the tarot deck, which was originally part of an unnumbered series of bonus trumps, began to be labeled as 13 beginning around 1565. So why is 13 so scary? Well, for centuries, 12 has been associated with a feeling of completeness. Consider the number of hours in the daily cycles, or the months in the year, or signs of the zodiac, or the great Olympic pantheon, or the original tribes of Israel. This implied sense of perfection may also derive from the fact that so many numbers can be divided into 12, making it a very useful composite, whereas 13 is an indivisible prime number, and as 12 plus 1 represents a departure from perfection, is an initial step towards evil. Silly as it sounds, these irrational fears continue to feed into the psyche of at least 10% of all modern Americans, who avoid staying in hotel rooms with the number 13, going up to the 13th floors of office buildings, or even purposefully avoiding sitting in the 13th row on airplanes. Okay, but when did Friday the 13th start becoming a thing? Most people point to Friday the 13th of October 1307, when, supposedly, King Philip IV of France had hundreds of the powerful military order of crusaders known as the Knights Templar arrested, imprisoned, and later executed on exaggerated criminal charges. However, the Knights Templar theory, while the most popular, is only really brought up in modern pop literature. There's no clear historical evidence to back up the connection, as it really wasn't recorded at the time. In fact, the earliest clear references to the unlucky Friday the 13th comes from French dramas of the early 19th century, in which characters bemoan their own births or tragic events which take place on this date. Incredibly, what became known as the French joke began assimilating itself into American literature and folklore within half a century of its first introduction. More fuel was added to the fire with Thomas William Lawson's 1907 novel, Friday the 13th, which tells the story of a New York stockbroker who plays on superstitions about the date to create chaos on Wall Street and make a financial killing for himself in the process. Of course, nowadays, we can't think about Friday the 13th without calling to mind another form of killing, namely the successful horror franchise of the same name, which first introduced the world to the hockey mask-wearing killer Jason back in 1980. Nonetheless, modern culture is quick to point out major events and disasters when they do occur on this infamous page of the calendar. The most destructive bombing of Buckingham Palace during the Blitz of World War II took place on Friday the 13th of September 1940. 56 years later, rapper Tupac Shakur succumbed to gunshot injuries sustained from a drive-by, passing away on Friday the 13th of September 1996. And that's on top of a list of plane crashes, shipwrecks, brush fires, floods, cyclones, and freak blizzards, all occurring on Fridays numbered 13 throughout the 20th century, which, let's be honest, doesn't help to relax the superstition any. Most modern scholars feel that Friday the 13th has become a convenient milestone for people looking to trace bad luck to a certain cause, but there's nothing special about the date itself. They're just looking for something to blame. What do you think? Is it just another convenient superstition? Or is there something more sinister hanging over this infamous page of the calendar? With 3 Fridays numbered 13 on the 2026 calendar, now's your chance to put your theories to the test. Join American Ghost Adventures on any one of our interactive investigations throughout the Central Florida region. Call or visit us online to book your customizable and family-friendly experience today.